Over the past year, COVID-19 has rampaged the world, affecting over 81 million people and claiming the lives of almost 1.8 million individuals. The impact on the UK has been catastrophic. As of December 13th, 2020, 10 million people are being furloughed, one in seven businesses are on the brink of collapse, and hundreds of thousands of people have been made redundant.
The devastating impact the coronavirus pandemic has had on society is clear, and so undoubtedly leads to the question of whether all individuals should be held responsible for their actions spreading COVID-19.
Initially, this may seem to be a simple question. However, in discussing this, we must measure the impacts of COVID-19 on individuals' lives and decide upon individuals' moral responsibility to wider society.
As public figures, it is widely expected that members of parliament uphold the bills they pass, as do other government workers and advisors. Yet over the course of the pandemic, it seems quite reasonable to accuse MPs and workers of the government of severely damaging people's trust in them, according to UCL researchers.
The likes of Dominic Cummings, for example, has refused to take responsibility for his role in this, with him maintaining to the BBC that he did not regret travelling to Durham despite having symptoms of coronavirus. His lack of remorse for his behaviour spikes fury from those who had followed the rules and has accused his response of highlighting double standards between MPs and ordinary citizens. Many MPs have since emulated his example, knowingly breaking the rules and putting the wider public at risk. These actions and lack of accountability has undoubtedly deterred the general public from following regulations and thus makes it clear that MPs have causal responsibility for the spread of COVID-19 and should be severely held accountable.
We must also determine the general public's responsibility to each other, and in this, decide whether they should be held accountable for spreading the virus. If we examine residents' responses to restrictions, it is clear to see there has been much opposition.
Rightfully so. People are frustrated by the impact the virus is having on their livelihoods and not receiving enough financial support from the government. It could therefore be considered understandable that hairdressers made home visits over lockdown and gyms refused to close, yet evidently contributing to the virus's spread. That begs the question of whether they should be held accountable, or if this is the inevitable consequence of insufficient financial support provided by the government.
Yet, if people don't quarantine, they are unmeasurably putting others at risk who have taken measures to avoid contracting the virus at all costs. Doesn't the public have a moral obligation to protect each other? After all, some people who are forced to self-isolate receive little or no compensation, which seems unmeasurably unfair. So it seems that the public does have a duty to follow rules in order to protect one another.
In a global pandemic, it seems clear that society is collectively responsible for the spread of COVID-19. The extent of this responsibility, however, and whether people should be held accountable for their actions is changeable.
We believe that the public has responsibility to society, and so must individuals should be held responsible for their actions. However, we believe the impact of several government representatives breaking the law and their failings to provide appropriate support for workers should be taken into consideration for public sanction.
As such, we believe that workers of the government are unmeasurably responsible and liable for the spread of COVID-19, particularly those who have broken government guidelines, who we believe should at the very least be suspended to reflect the damage that have caused the public's response to restrictions.